He's also having trouble joining, so I'm assuming he needs to go through the app and add the meeting ID as well. But I wonder if that will be a problem other people might experience as well.
I'm going to share screen first as the attendees stream in.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the launch of the Gender Lens Incubation and Acceleration Toolkit 2.0. I'm Pat Mathias, the head of the gender platform at AVPN, and I am delighted to have all of you join us today. For those of you who do not know AVPN, we are a network of funders and resource providers with 600 members from over 32 markets. Our mandate is to move more capital towards impact in Asia by providing social investors like yourselves opportunities to connect, learn, and lead. A few housekeeping announcements before moving to the program. To ensure your experience with us this morning is meaningful, if any of the speaker video causes a lag on your computer, please click to pause the video by hovering over the face to reduce the usage of your internet bandwidth. And if you have questions for any of the speakers, please type your questions in the Q&A box that will show up at the lower part of your screen, where the moderators will see your questions and raise them for the speakers. Please include your name and organization in your question, and any specific speaker if the question is directed to one. Due to time constraints, please understand if the speakers may not be able to respond to all your questions. but we will collate the questions and share them with the speakers. And finally, please note that this session will be recorded, and we will send you the session recording in the follow-up email. Thank you. I hope you enjoy this session, and I will now hand over to Ayaka.
Hi, welcome to our GLIA Toolkit 2.0 launch event. I am Ayaka Matsuno, Director of Gender Investment and Innovation Department of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation. We are one of the largest private foundations in Japan with a mission to make our world a better place. We have 5 strategic goals, one of which is promoting women's empowerment, as we believe that realizing more sustainable and inclusive world, it is imperative to call all genders to take action. My department is in charge of spearheading our efforts to promoting women's empowerment, especially economic empowerment and gender equality. By doing so, we envision a more prosperous, sustainable, and inclusive Asia. Our flagship initiative, we established the Asia Women Impact Fund in 2017. This is the very first fund with a gender lens by a private foundation in Asia. We plan to invest up to $100 million to support women's economic empowerment and gender equality. While we strengthen the stream of capital flowing into women entrepreneurs and then women-focused businesses, we also try to support such entrepreneurs and businesses by strengthening entrepreneurial support organizations, we call them ESO, through developing resources on how to effectively apply a gender lens to their organization, program, and ecosystem. Our original Gender Lens Incubation and Acceleration Toolkit, we call it GLIA Toolkit, which was introduced last year. And then that was created based on such needs identified by those entrepreneurial support organizations. Today, we will launch the GLIA Toolkit 2.0 with new features and additional content. As you know, yesterday, we had International Women's Day, and this year's theme was Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in the COVID-19 World. It has been a very challenging year for all of us in the world because of this global pandemic, and it is said that the negative impact of COVID-19 was even more severely affected by women, and it could wipe out 25 years of increasing gender equality according to the new global data from UN Women. But women are not only the victims to this pandemic. We are the front and center to the COVID response as well. Some women in leadership have successfully shed the light on their effective and inclusive response to the virus and then proved that women as equally as men can contribute to the solution. However, the world of entrepreneurship and investment is still not equally accessible to or inclusive of all genders. In fact, according to the World Bank, globally speaking, only 1 in 3 small, medium, and large businesses are owned by women. In this regard, Entrepreneurship Support Organization, ESO, play a critical role in driving gender equitable change by supporting social impact entrepreneurs and ensuring the capital flows towards businesses that bring value to women. So this GLIA Toolkit 2.0 is a new upgraded version of the original GLIA Toolkit. After the launch of the original toolkit, we gathered the voices of the target users and responded the needs identified by them to enrich the content with 2 major updates. We introduced Gender and Impact Measurement Matrix that allows ESOs to prepare a clear plan to measure, evaluate, and learn from the impact of the gender strategy they implement. We also added 4 new modules to learn about negotiation skills, gender in products and services, imposter syndrome, and gender empower. In order to test its practicality and usability, the GLIA Toolkit 2.0 underwent a pilot testing phase conducted by 7 leading ESOs in Southeast Asia, namely Change Fusion from Thailand, Impact Hub Kuala Lumpur from Malaysia, Impact Palu from Indonesia, Make Sense from Philippines, New Energy Nexus from Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and Philippines, Grow from Philippines, and WISE from Vietnam. Among those, we are very happy to have 3 GLIA partners today as panelists. Priya, co-founder and CEO from Grow, Ralph, Catalyst, Partnerships, Programs and Community from Impact Hub Kuala Lumpur, and Anjali, Executive Director for Operation from Make Sense Asia. Thank you very much for joining us today to share your firsthand experiences in using this new toolkit. And finally, before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who have joined today amid your very busy schedule, and those people who have worked very hard to put this program together, especially AVPN and ygap, our partner for GLIA project. Although we only have 1 hour today, we hope that we can learn how to apply Gender Lens to your work using the GLIA toolkit and gain insights from the panelists on how the new resources of the GLIA 2.0 can lead to gender-focused outcomes. Without further ado, let me give the floor to Audrey Jean-Baptiste, Regional Director from ygap. Thank you very much and have a great session.
Thank you so much, Ayaka, for that introduction, and good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you for being here and showing interest in the GLIA toolkit, and thanks to Maya and the team at AVPN for having us. My name is Audrey and I'm a program director at ygap. We're an international development nonprofit organization, and we work directly with entrepreneurs through our accelerator programs across Asia, Africa, and the Pacific Islands, as well as with the systems that allow them to succeed, which is where the GLIA toolkit kind of fits in terms of our work. Before we dive into the panel and the demo, we just wanted to get a sense of who's in the room today. So we're just going to do a quick poll, which is up at the moment. I'm sure we are all very familiar with polls now that we've spent a year doing them on Zoom. So if you could spend a couple of seconds just answering the 3 questions that should have popped up on your screen, we would really appreciate it. Oops, seeing them come through now. Looks like we have a lot of diversity in the room from the results that I'm seeing come through, which is really great. Love that we have some of Europe represented. Thank you for getting up early for us. All right, well, we'll leave it up for another few seconds. A few more seconds if you haven't had a chance to answer those 3 questions. Amazing. I think we might be good to go. I'm not sure if we are publishing the results, but as you can see, there's a lot of diversity in the virtual room today. It's really great to see so many different organizations and geographies represented. Although the GLIA toolkit was developed with and tested by Southeast Asia-based entrepreneurship support organization, it is applicable and has been used more widely. And at the end of the day, we all know that we really need collective action from all actors across and outside of the entrepreneurship ecosystem globally to achieve meaningful large-scale change and achieve equality. So for the last question, Asia and the Pacific stand to gain 70% in per capita income within roughly 2 generations by eliminating gender disparities in employment, including in entrepreneurship. So this, I think most people went with 50%. So this really showcases the impact case, but also the business case for achieving gender equality in how much of an impact it could have on our economies. Thank you everyone for taking part in this poll. As we all know and we're reminded with International Women's Day, and as Ayaka mentioned, we've come a long way when it comes to women's rights. And I'm sure we all have and are working with incredible women founders and leaders and projects, programs, ventures that aim to empower women and girls as part of our respective streams of work, which is all contributing towards achieving gender equality. But our systems and our societies still have a very long way to go for us to get there, and we're not getting there fast enough. So we believe that social entrepreneurship, with the support of ecosystem actors, especially venture philanthropy, holds the power to lead the way in achieving this. So I'm now going to jump into a demo of the toolkit, including the new content. If you haven't had a chance to look at the toolkit before, I'll start from the beginning and kind of swift through and then introduce the gender and impact measurement new content that Ayaka mentioned. So I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see this. So this is the landing page for the GLIA toolkit on the right here. On the left, it's a sister resource that was developed around the same time that aims to support new incubators and accelerators, or existing incubators and accelerators, to just consider how they can improve their operations. So we recommend you do look into that if that's where you're at. But otherwise, to begin the Gender Lens Incubation and Acceleration Toolkit, we have 3 main intro pages that I'll kind of swift through, but it essentially provides context on why this is important and the power that we hold within the ecosystem to be able to advance gender equality. And it introduces the 3 main sections and focus areas for the toolkit, which is essentially how an incubator or accelerator, but I will argue and I will show you that if you're another type of organization, this could still be valuable for you, can apply a gender lens to their organization, to their program, and to how they interact and influence the broader ecosystem. And we have case studies throughout from our wonderful GLIA partners who have come on the journey with us. The second page is an interesting one. It's around gender and sustainability. So again, I think all of us in this room would probably agree that gender equality is a fundamental human right, but with the society and the power dynamics that exist in the world today, you still need to be able to prove a business case and an impact case to really allocate the resources and focus. So this page just goes through some of the research that shows how diversity and inclusion can actually lead to good business and impact outcomes. So you can just flip through and it has some of the research there. And then the last page of the introduction just goes through a how-to guide on using the toolkit. So we do have a self-diagnosis tool that we encourage you to use if you don't really know how any of this applies to your organization. It has some reflective questions that you can do as a team and just work through how you might be able to solve for gender issues within your organization, program, or ecosystem by using the toolkit. And then there's a few different ways you can navigate through the whole resource. There's a few different menus around, but one of the ways is to take it offline. So you can download the PDF for it if you don't have bandwidth or just want to take it offline. And you can also navigate through this content map. So this just gives you an overview of the whole toolkit and all of the sections within it. So this is a great way to have a look at all of the content and pick and choose what you want to work on. We're all time poor, we're all, have competing resources and focus. And so this is a great way for you to decide where you want to allocate your focus. And you can start as little as implementing one strategy, or you can try to go through the toolkit from beginning to end and apply every single strategy that you come across. It's really up to you. But essentially the 3 sections that I mentioned before, organization, program, and ecosystem, if you're an organization that is not an incubator or accelerator, the organization section is still something that you could get a lot of value out of, because it's just about how do you apply a gender lens to team recruitment, team processes, values, culture, and all of that exists in all of our respective organizations. For the program section, it is looking at the life cycle of an accelerator or incubator program, from the recruitment of entrepreneurs all the way to alumni programs. That being said, you could substitute program for product or service, because I'm sure that some of the strategies and advice that's provided throughout could be relevant to you as well. But just to show you a flow, for example, if I want to start with applying a gender lens to my organization, I would kind of go through the organization section, which kind of walks you through why it's important and the purpose of applying a gender lens to your organization more broadly, as well as some outcomes around it, going a little bit into that impact measurement. And then it gives you different areas that you can choose to dive into. So for example, if I choose to dive into my team and I'm currently recruiting a team member, I might go into this section and have a look at how can I possibly remove some of the bias that might be present within my recruitment practices. And within that, we give you some really handy strategies and frameworks that you can use along the way. So this is kind of the flow throughout the whole toolkit, and we really encourage you to explore it for yourselves. A couple of other things that are worth noting before I dive into the new section is some case studies. So all of the wonderful organizations that Ayaka mentions, they have case studies that they wrote based on their experience using the toolkit. So if you need more color to add to your journey with the GLIA toolkit, feel free to dive into those and reach out to these organizations. You're going to hear from 3 of them today. And the new section, so as Ayaka mentioned, is all about gender in impact measurement. So this whole toolkit takes you through the journey of addressing power imbalances and gender inequality within your work, but none of that matters if you can't actually work out whether that's making a difference or not. So this is really a section about measuring your impact and applying a gender lens to your impact measurement framework, so that you can actually figure out whether the strategies you're putting in place, whether that's a program to support women-led founders or a new policy within your organization, is having an impact. So there's different sections there. We go all the way from the beginning and building that business case internally to choosing gender indicators, collecting data, analyzing that data, and communicating your progress. I'll just point out here that there is a handy way for you to download this in PDF format if that you'd prefer to work through it that way, but also if you don't have the bandwidth. And then, for example, if I jump into one of the first ones, like choosing gender indicators, this section is going to give you an overview of what a gender indicator is, and then just guide you through the process of considering the indicators that might make the most sense in your context based on the strategies that you've decided to put in place. And throughout, you can have examples around how this could apply to your organization, your program or ecosystem, again, mapping it with the rest of the toolkit. And as well as we've got a collection of, oh, all right, this one is broken. We will have, when we fix this, a selection of indicators. So those are indicators that were developed based on best practice research, and it will have both quantitative and qualitative indicators. So essentially it looks at all the different parts of the toolkit. For example, if you're adapting your selection process for entrepreneurs, then it will suggest some quantitative indicators. What can you measure? What can you quantify? And some qualitative measures. So those are questions that you could ask throughout the process to see whether what you've put in place to amend your selection process to make it more accessible or inclusive is actually working or not. How can you measure that over time? So that's where you'll be able to find them. It's also connected to every single section of the toolkit throughout. So that's a quick overview of the toolkit itself. If you have any questions relating to the toolkit, please do put them in the Q&A, and I'll be in the background during the panel as well if there's any questions relating to that I can address. Otherwise, we'll make sure that we're able to address them as well in our follow-up email to everyone. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And I will, actually, I did want to mention again, and Ayaka did a great job at this, that there is 4 new modules coming out soon, which are really, really exciting. So these are modules that were created for you to use with your team internally or with your entrepreneurs as part of your program curriculum to increase gender equality within your work internally or the work of your entrepreneurs, or to provide equity in how you deliver your program curriculum as well. So those 4 are Gender and Power 101. So this is a very basic session for you to explore power imbalances and what gender looks like within your respective context, whether that's region, country, And then the other one is gender in product and service design. So as your entrepreneurs are designing products and services to go out to market, how could they apply a gender lens to their process, whether that's research or product development or marketing? The other two are imposter syndrome and negotiation skills. So those are currently getting tested by our wonderful GLIA partners and will be added to the GLIA toolkit in the next couple of months. And those will be able to be accessed. You can contextualize, translate, adapt them as you wish. That'll be a public good that will be added to the GLIA toolkit very shortly. So with that, I will pass it over to Rina from the Sasakawa Peace Foundation to kick off the panel.
Hi, thank you, Audrey, for your wonderful presentation. And I hope that we all have some good knowledge about the new function of the GLIA Toolkit 2.0. My name is Rina Komiya, and I'm a program officer from the Sasakawa Peace Foundation. From now, we would like to have a 25 minutes panel discussion with 3 intermediaries from Southeast Asia, namely Vigoro, Impact Hub Kuala Lumpur, and Make Sense Asia. We would like to encourage everyone in the audience to submit questions about the GLIA Toolkit 2.0 via chat box. Okay, so while we wait for some questions from the audience to come, I would like to ask the panelists some questions. First of all, why were you initially interested in the GLIA Toolkit? And in practical terms, how have you used it to help you advance gender equality within your organization? Maybe Priya, would you like to go first?
Sure. I hope everybody can hear me. Hi, and first of all, thank you so much for having me here along with my wonderful peers, and we've all been great beneficiaries of using the toolkit as well as being part of
I think she's a bit frozen. Maybe we can go for Anjali.
Oh, sure. Oh no, Priya. We lost you, but it's okay. I'm gonna pick up where my wonderful peer stopped abruptly, But again, thank you everyone for having us here. Just to answer the question, makes sense at a quick glance. If you look at our organizational structure, or if you look at us in social media, you will see that it looks like it's an organization that doesn't have a problem with gender or inclusivity at all. I mean, having more than 70% of our full-timers as women, and in leadership positions, actually 70-80% are also occupied by women. And that's pretty much unheard of in a space like this, no? Well, in many spaces, really. So I think that is really cool. And I'm not saying that Make Sense has a problem with inclusivity. The issue is that we actually do not know. We don't know exactly how we got here because we don't know how to measure it. We don't know how exactly inclusivity is measured in practical terms. And that is where the GLIA toolkit came in and all of the training and also learning from peers. Priya, I would love for you to continue what you were saying earlier, and of course to hear from Rolf as well. But for us to once and for all just find out how gender inclusive Make Sense really is, improve it from that baseline, and then teach that methodology to the 250,000 members and counting that we have in the community worldwide. Practically, what we've done so far is just training internally so that we know the language and we know the process. And then this year, we are set to launch a code of conduct for our community so that we all know the set of behaviors that is acceptable for inclusivity and acceptance. But at the same time, we also know clear cut, like what sort of behavior is not acceptable and how that can be reported and, of course, taken care of. Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Rina. Priya?
Thank you, Anjali. And I think Priya is back. Priya, can you?
Yes, I am. Of course, great internet until you have to speak, right?
Great.
But yeah, so, as I was saying, just kind of reflecting back onto what Anjali was saying as well. I think as impact organization, we tend to believe that we're doing great. And sometimes high level numbers do say that, even at Will Grow, majority of the entrepreneurs we are supporting are, women entrepreneurs. The number of exits that we've got from, women entrepreneurs is pretty significant, but we've not gone beyond that. So how do we truly apply gender lens into our work as incubators? And I think that is what, for me, was really exciting about the toolkit, that now we had a language, we were able to train not just, the leader of the organization, but everybody, cascaded down to every single person in the team, and really empower them with the language and the tools and processes and systems of how to apply gender lens to incubation. And I think that is what really kind of helped us as a team. And really being beneficiaries of all of the support from SPF and ygap. We've really set out 2 years ago to become a gender smart incubator. We had no idea what that means. We are still figuring it out. But we've now set out a strategy of, going from really being impact focused to really embracing becoming a gender smart incubator and figuring out what that means. And the toolkit really has been the key, the driver to implement what applying gender lens means. And for us, that's how we've been using it for selection, for all of our processes and systems, but also really giving the team, right, the people who are really on the ground working with entrepreneurs, the opportunity and the language to feel empowered that, okay, we are now applying gender lens and this is how we can make a difference. You can actually, you can measure it and you can see the change in your organization, which I think for me has been really the fabulous thing about using the toolkit, and what really was my expectation, but didn't know how it's going to work out, right? Because we all have very, very ambitious goals. And so that's been my journey with the toolkit.
Thank you, Priya. Ralph, what's your thought?
And just to give a little bit of background, with Impact Hub being part of the world's largest impact entrepreneur network, where we're really focused around building entrepreneurial communities for impact at scale. So we have an overall 2030 strategy where we've wanted to position ourselves as impact hubs to be active drivers of gender equality through the work that we do, our programs and our activities. So in the context of Impact Hub KL, some time back in 2017 and 18, we made an effort to redefine our role within the ecosystem in Malaysia and plan for, at the time, which was Hub 2.0. So we came up with thematic pillars of work, which were basically impactful enterprises, which was our work with innovators and entrepreneurs and seeing how they can become businesses for good. And then also working with empowered individuals, because we believe that each and every individual has the capacity to create impact. And then the last pillar was inclusive communities, where we wanted to play the role of sparking these conversations around making sure that those communities that are normally left behind are included in social economic development in Malaysia. So these three pillars were meant to guide our work and efforts going forward and position Impact Hub as the hub for impact in Malaysia. And overarching, this was our foundation for well-being for people and the planet. So fast forwarding to 2020, ygap reached out to us and they invited us to be part of the GLIA cohort. And we saw this as a good opportunity to further develop our inclusivity agenda, which at the time was mostly the programs that we had under the inclusive communities. And but also because we had already committed ourselves as an organization to champion and foster diversity and inclusion in communities in Malaysia. So being part of the cohort gave us really an opportunity to also use it as a test bed to further explore new approaches and new strategies, which are normally outside our parameters. So learning never stops. So we were very much interested in learning new ways to do it. But also at the time, I think a priority in the program was also to see how we as an organization could position ourselves with a gender lens approach and also take this deeper review of our portfolio programs and see how effective we were in addressing the gender perspective. So I think in the toolkit, we had a lot of metrics that we were able to now start incorporating as part of our programs. And I think, as you mentioned, we also came back into seeing how we as an organization can look into recruiting, with a gender lens perspective. So I guess that was what are the key reasons why we chose to be part of this cohort in 2020.
Thank you, Rolf. My second question is, how do you think the GLIA Toolkit can provide you with a competitive edge within the ecosystem? Do you have a business case for applying a gender lens to your work? Maybe Anjali, would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you, Rina. Well, Make Sense is in the business of re-empowering people, rather, so that we can create positive impact in respective communities and, solving social and environmental issues that each and every one of us care about. So in that way, and the way that we see it, the more inclusive we are in the way that we run our programs, the way that we recruit our volunteers, our entrepreneurs, social innovators, then the better chances we'll have in attracting and, of course, retaining and even engaging these brilliant, talented, passionate people. It's very important to us to invest a lot in the people, but also in the process and also in the space that we create for them, because we know for a fact that we invest more than 80% of our operational costs just on people and salaries and stuff like this. But also, if you invest a lot on employee salaries, or even investing on allowances maybe for some volunteers or some entrepreneurs, it's not going to matter much if the environment or the space itself needs some working on. And so we want to make sure that that investment, the 80% of sorts that we put into the people investment, is worth it, by making sure that the space that we create is actually inclusive and psychologically safe for everyone to be their most brilliant self. And I mean, that's not exactly a business case, but this is the shortest way that I can explain it. I hope that that is understandable for everyone.
Thank you, Anjali. Priya, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just I love what you shared, Anjali. I think we've been, I think the whole cohort was so privileged to be able to be capacitated on this, right? Because, and that has really built a lot of confidence. So for us, as Wilgrow, Wilgrow is a part of a network of a very, very experienced incubator. And despite the fact that, we've done really well on the gender numbers, formally applying a gender lens, I think that that I believe will transform us and really elevate the impact that we are going to create on the ground so much more, because now we can actually see and measure and really kind of track the progress and the measurable change. I think for me, the main thing is that we have a lot of great intentions, and then we have a lot of great words, and we really want to do it. And I think what the GLIA toolkit can really has helped us do is convert that into actions and outcomes. And on the back of all of the support and training over the last few years, we launched the first accelerator for women entrepreneurs in the Philippines, and we applied the toolkit all the way from the beginning, from the ideation and the design of that program to selecting the entrepreneurs. And now, that program is ongoing, and we've actually expanded now to create the very first platform for women entrepreneurs to access capital and bringing multiple stakeholders. I think a lot of this would not have been possible if we did not very actively adopt gender lens and really use the toolkit, use the learnings from our peers that we got to craft a gender smart strategy that now is taking us into the next phase of what will grow.
I think Priya is frozen again, but yeah, I think everyone understands what she's saying. So Ralph, would you like to share your thoughts?
Oh, yes. Yeah, from in our case, I think for us as Impact Hub KL, we have this ambition. We really want to be the go-to partner for impact in Malaysia, right? But what that means is we want to be always continually positioning ourselves to provide opportunities and pathways for impact for individuals, organizations, and our communities. So, the business case with actually what we felt we got from adopting and using the GLIA toolkit was it enabled us to achieve and ensure that we can have the right resources and people in place to execute our ambition, our vision, right? And at an organizational level, adopting these strategies and approaches, which we found in the toolkit, helped us normally in our recruitment approach, right? Because we believe that, to be able to really create significant impact, you have to widen that perspective and also have the right people in place, right? And as an organization, we were better to position ourselves to respond to the needs of our diverse community. So the people part is always important, but also to be able to make better decisions and ultimately improve our overall performance at an organization and programs level, which then I believe shapes how we are seen within our own ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Rolf. I think we're receiving some questions from the audience. So yeah, this is my last question. How much time does it take to apply a gender lens to your work? And what kind of actual changes has the GLIA toolkit brought to your work to date? Have you seen any positive results already? Anjali, would you like to go first?
Sure. Actually, there's a lot that has happened since we graduated from the GLIA cohort last year. It's actually been inspiring for a lot of us, not only for the women that benefited directly from the training that we got, but also the whole organization, at least in the Philippine hub, because we were able to use this as our point of conversation for deconstructing privilege, for one, and also understanding gender in a way that we can make it actionable and generative for our projects and for our own lives. I cannot say that we have metrics that are already final because all of our projects so far that's related to GLIA are still ongoing. So if you wanna learn more about how we applied it and also how it's gonna turn out, please do tune in to our website. You can find us at Make Sense PH, or I can send the link actually on the chat later on. But the most concrete result that we got from the GLIA toolkit is really the almost step like literally step by step instructions and training on how we can do better in using gender lens in empowering women in our organization, such as the training on imposter syndrome, for example, and the training on gender and power. That is amazing, just how it gave us the weapon. We would say weapon in the shield really is how our teammates would put it in terms of dealing with community members, dealing with potential partners, and even just general audience whenever we talk about gender out in the public, because most of our work really interfaces the community members one by one.
Great, thank you. Ralph, would you like to go next?
Yes, so sure. Us applying the genderless approach to our work has been a very progressive process. I think for us, it was likely much more easier to incorporate it because we'd already taken that initial step to really define our ambitions back when we came up with our thematic pillars and have this intention to be inclusive as an organization, right? And however, I think, when you're a very lean organization, you don't normally have the resources to hire a dedicated person to lead this. So we took it upon ourselves to collectively drive this individually and as a collective. And as a catalyst in the team, it was my work internally to see how we could bring whatever insights we got from our cohort, together with our peers, and then take these lessons into our team and see how we could drive them together over time. But I think also personally, it was an important step, which did take some time for me, was identifying my own views on what gender lens meant to me as a man, and also seeing how I can allow myself to have an open mind to understand where power dynamics may exist and shift, whether it's in my personal life, in the work front, or within our own ecosystem. So I think some of the exercises, for example, like the self-diagnosis tool that we used in the GLIA toolkit, it was very good to see where you initially stand as an organization, right? And then it you were able to propose what strategies to move from there. But an interesting thing that we had when we worked with this as a team was to always see how we did it individually and then we do it as a team. And you're able to actually start mapping this from how different individuals within your team actually see the gender approach of your own organization. And then from there, we were actually able to start collectively mapping out ways to how we can address these differences from different members in that team. And then that's where the toolkit was very helpful in coming up with these approaches and coming up with these strategies. So for us, definitely, it's been very progressive. And yeah, and I think with time, a lot of some of these results we'll definitely start seeing at an organizational level and through our programs, and then also represent within our own ecosystem, being a champion for this.
Great, Ralph. Thank you so much. Priya, just in case you missed my question, we're talking about the result that we seen by applying the GLIA toolkit. Can you share your experience or thoughts?
Sorry, could you just repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay, yeah, we're talking about the result that we've seen in the organization or your work after applying the gender lens or the GLIA toolkit.
Got it. Yes, that is exactly what I was trying to say earlier. So great. I think for us, there is the number one thing is that we have a very specific gender smart incubation strategy that's come out. And it has come out from testing the toolkit, for my team to be applying it, and the support that we got as part of the training over the last, few months in actually articulating it into a strategy. I think so that's what's going to drive, our 3-year strategy going forward. The second thing is that I think my team feels far more empowered because when we look at the numbers, we're doing great, right? But how do we go deeper? I think that is the biggest challenge for most impact organizations and most of us AVP and members, because we've bought into this. We really believe in gender equality. We want to apply a gender lens. But how do we go beyond the surface level, beyond high level numbers, into really, really being immersed and, where hopefully in the future, we wouldn't need a gender lens, right? Because that's really integrated mainstreamed into our organizations, into our operations. And I think the third piece is that how do we not just make it programmatic? And I think that has been really powerful for us. It's not just about, selecting the entrepreneurs or just designing an incubation program and adding the gender modules. It's really a holistic process, organizationally, programmatically and individually. I think ultimately, for us, we've changed our hiring strategy, right? We're only hiring people who we believe are gender equality champions. And so that buying in, risk is not there because they're coming in because they want to do this and they want to create that last mile change. And all of these are very specific, concrete results for us because, we've been on this journey. We've been quite fortunate to have been, on this journey even before the toolkit was kind of, out. So we've, and hence, I feel the pressure as a, female CEO to make sure that we are leading the way and we are showcasing what is really possible. And what do we really mean by applying this genderless as an incubator?
Thank you so much, Priya. And from now, I would like to share some questions from the audience. I think the audience is interested in our challenges. So let's talk about the challenges that we are facing right now. So one question is about the challenge in applying the GLIA toolkit. And another question, I think similar but a bit different. What kind of challenges do you have to become a gender smart organization? Anjali, would you like to go first? Can you share your thoughts about the challenges that you faced?
Sure. So in terms of challenges that we faced in applying what we learned from the GLIA program, I could summarize it in, 2 words, probably time and difficult. So let me explain. No, we all bought in, like what Priya and Ralph already mentioned. The Make Sense organization is fully bought in the idea of being inclusive overall, not just of gender, but overall, really. And it was easy to start talking about it. In fact, in the Philippines team, everyone was waiting for us to just share what we learned from GLIA, because it was all hyped up and everyone really wanted to learn from what we are also benefiting from. But you know, as with any organization, I think it's all about being deliberate and intentional in putting it into your programs and making time for applying what you learned. Same goes for what we learned in GLIA Toolkit to our programs. And that was not easy for us. If I have to be very, very transparent, it was not easy for us because there were already programs running at the time, November until now. And baking in what we learned from the GLIA program was something that we had to, think about as a team, and then really change what can be changed as the operations move forward. But obviously, this is something that we can easily do now that the programs are restarting. But the second thing is that even if everyone has the buy-in already, we have the buy-in of everyone already, rather, it is still difficult to talk about gender lens. I mean, I don't know if Priya and Ralph relates, but in a team where inclusivity, social impact is something that is in our normal day to day, obviously because it's our work, right? When you talk about personal perspectives on gender, on inclusivity, on privilege, it's still difficult to reflect on it, and even more in verbalizing it and sharing it, even with your team members that you already trust. There's something about the issue itself that is just so sticky and heavy, and it's just so difficult to discuss it out in public. But with that challenge, all you have to do is really follow the the instructions in the GLIA toolkit, which is essentially create the space that is safe, psychologically safe for everyone, and really give everyone time to reflect before you meet with one another, so that when the time comes for the discussion, everyone is prepared with what they need to say. And even then, you can still keep pushing, as Priya has been sharing. No, it's all about going deeper into the discussion and not just saying that, yes, I believe in gender inclusivity, but why do you think that? How are you expressing it? Are you sure? These questions are difficult on a personal level, and even more so in an organizational level, but it's a discussion that you have to start if you haven't yet.
Yeah, thank you, Anjali, for sharing your thoughts and experience. Priya, do you have any thoughts on the challenges?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about what might be some of the challenges. I think for us, I think for all of us, the buy-in from the team, has not been the challenge, because that's our strategy. That's the way that we're moving forward. That's who we hire. I think overall in the ecosystem, and working not only with female cohorts, women entrepreneurs, but mixed cohorts, and globally, I think there sometimes can be a bit of fatigue around pushing this issue. I think coming from the last 3 years of, talking up the Me Too movement and Time's Up and everything that we've gone through. And then, this real push for gender lens, it's the buzzword, right? So so sometimes I think we have to be very careful. And this is a challenge that all of us are going to face going forward, that it's not just, we had impact washing, there's no gender washing, right? And I think we have to be very cognizant of that. So we are actually trying to preempt what might that be, the way that we are operating, because we don't want to be reporting high level numbers and just doing the check box. So I think that's one thing that we are being cognizant of, and trying to kind of get ahead and questioning ourselves about how do we avoid that, because we really want to create that transformational change. I think the second one has been, for us, it really, we are a little bit skewed of an organization because we are majority women in the team as well. So how do we really include the 1 or 2 men that are actually there and not leave them out of this process, right? And for us, that integration, and how do we really diversify our own team, and making sure that everybody is kind of on board and don't feel kind of sad because all the women are going, let's go. So that has been another challenge. And I think the toolkit for us, there's a bit of resistance because people are used to doing a certain way, like with anything that we are trying to change the system of, right? We already have a due diligence questionnaire. Now we have to add X questions. And so it takes time to change the process to kind of integrate all of this. So we did have a little bit of that. We benefited from the fact that we were starting, we designed a brand new program, but actually applying it to other programs that were already running fairly well, had very good gender numbers, I think has been a little bit of a challenge. So these were some of the things I was, we haven't had a lot of challenges yet, but I do see some coming up. And I think these are some of the things that we need to be cognizant of, I would say.
Thank you, Priya. Rav, would you like to share your challenges you faced in applying GLIA Toolkit?
In our case, I think most of the challenges my colleagues have already in a way raised. I think the element of time is one of the biggest things, because we felt, and especially I think a lot of us as intermediaries have very lean organizations, so resources are not, it's not something that we have that liberty for. So I think we normally spread across multiple projects, and the risk and the challenge was always that the toolkit might become less of a priority, as we get busier. And last year was also a very challenging year, and a lot of our organization, we had to re-strategize, restructure. But I think for us, the most important thing was to see how we can just continuously grow, because this is not going to happen overnight, right? We're not going to change everything overnight. So the fact that we are able to think about having this intention and start small and then incorporate it as we go, starting with our own organization, I think that was one of the priorities that we had as part of our cohort. How are we going to be able to drive it internally first before we then implement it through our programs and then position ourselves in the ecosystem? And one interesting challenge was also because I think when we had our calls was because we wanted to incorporate, having, gender clauses as part of also our company structure, right? So legally, some of these things there's still no laws around it. So it's very difficult. If you want to really make the commitment as an organization, when you go to your Securities Commission, they were like, oh, we haven't done this at the moment. So as much as we want to say, yes, we are very much around gender diversity and inclusion, it's very difficult to also then include this as part of your articles. So I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And as long as us as intermediaries, our stakeholders, we keep, in a way driving this and then also raising that awareness, I think there's a lot of awareness that we need to raise. But also I think at an individual level, as I mentioned earlier, I had to learn, and I learned certain aspects, right? And then that way I was able to position myself to actually see how, these power dynamics are very much different. Our organization is also very much majority women, but also as a guy being able to drive this was, I think, very refreshing for the ladies in the team. But I also think it's just a matter of time that we can be able to, implement these strategies and then confidently achieve our goals within the next 3-5 years.
Thank you so much, Ralph. We really would like to continue this panel discussions, but time is running out. So yeah, so sorry for our audience who asked questions. We're just running, time is running out. So maybe Audrey and the Anjali, Priya, Ralph, can we kind of say a few words as final remarks? Maybe Anjali, Priya, Ralph, and then Audrey.
All right, sure. Thank you so much, Reena. Just very quickly, I would like to encourage everyone to check out the link that was shared earlier to browse through the toolkit, because I'm telling you, it's something that is very significant and easily actionable once you go through it. It might sound daunting, I'm sure, because gender is not, again, one of the easiest topics to discuss, especially as an organization, but it's super worth it. And if there's anything that you want to ask from the cohorts, well, from people who have tried it out, at least the first version, I would be happy to chat with you. I will send my email address in the chat later on, but really my encouragement is to use it for your own organization, re-empower the women in your company, and witness how just by doing so, your whole organization will change for the better.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if we are not applying a gender lens, really, what are we doing? And I think this is the group of people who really can champion all of us AVPN members, right? We believe in this. And so if you don't know how to get started or how to make the transition, this is where you got to start. I think the toolkit just makes it so easy. It makes it, every single person on your team, in our organization, including our admin person, everybody uses the toolkit because it really empowers you with very specific questions, specific doubts that you have, it can be cleared, right? You just go through it. So I would encourage everyone to start there. The group that we've had, the learnings that we've had from peers in really, implementing gender lens and using this toolkit and really just hearing how different people are trying it out. I think that was super powerful. So I think that is something that, we can continue on even as AVP and members. There's just so much sharing and learning, and we are all just at the beginning of this journey. Nobody is yet the ultimate expert. So I think we're all starting out and there's just so much to share and learn. So I would just say that let's continue to share and learn. And there are quite a number of us who are really experimenting, really taking off, along with the toolkit, right? And so we'd love to continue to share our stories and our learnings. And I hope we can collaborate across the board with our peers, because I think only if we do it collectively can we really create that lasting change that we want much faster, right? We can't wait 200 years for gender equality. So let's really, really collaborate and come together, use fabulous tools like the GLIA toolkit to move that agenda forward.
I guess from my end, I think, yeah, the toolkit was definitely, it was very comprehensive and easy to follow. I think the fact that I'd already been having an interest around this topic, it really made it easy. And I think it's, as an organization, there's so many different layers that you can look at it, whether you want to approach it at an ecosystem level, you want to approach it as an organization, or you want to approach it as a program. I think there were very many different steps. I think it's one of those, like, it's a plug and play thing where you can pick something that you feel like, okay, I think I know this, and then I go with this, because that's where you definitely start getting your confidence and learning the other aspects. And I think, as Priya mentioned, we're not experts, so we're all learning. And it's like this leaving labs approach, where we're constantly just experimenting and finding what works, right? And hopefully us as intermediaries, right, once we find a working formula, we can then start working with those within our communities. We like to connect the dots and then bring together other stakeholders to see how we can collectively drive this agenda. And as Priya said, we cannot wait for 200 years to achieve this. And I think it's very possible, especially if we all collaborate, and collaboration is key with us as well. So from our end, I think, yeah, definitely we want to move towards knowing this very well, and then be able to then bring others on board, and those are some of the intentions that we have moving forward, to already start encouraging and involving those within our ecosystem to already start taking into account some of these aspects.
Awesome, thanks, Ralph. I'll jump in really quickly. I know we're a little bit over time, but essentially the GLIA toolkit was really developed knowing that we would continue to add to it as we deepen our understanding around how to advance gender equality. And we're doing that with our community of practice and with our GLIA partners and more generally. And it's very much meant to be a living and breathing resource that will continue to grow over time. So if you see today on this call, hearing from the panelists or seeing the demo of the toolkit or going through it afterwards with the organization, if you see any opportunities to collaborate, whether that's translating the toolkit or linking to some research or aligned resource that you found. I saw a comment around testing it in India, or providing feedback or creating another version for your organization, please do not hesitate to contact us. There were some really valid questions that came through the Q&A that hopefully we can save and try to address as well separately, but feel free to reach out to us if we haven't. There were some really great questions around looking at non-binary kind of gender, which we do take into account in the toolkit. And I would recommend that person look at the case study from She Investments, because they specifically wanted to look at how they can include, how they could advance gender equality, looking at genders outside of women and men. And they came through some really interesting challenges in doing that. In one of their local languages doesn't even have language around gender identities. So it was a really interesting project for them to work on, and they've got a blog post as part of their case study within the toolkit. So yeah, just reach out if any of this resonates with you and you want to provide us with feedback or you want to collaborate. We're very open to it, because this is just going to benefit us all if we can get there. So that's it from me.
Thank you so much, Anjali Priyaro, for sharing your experience and great insights. We hope that this panel discussion was a fruitful one. So now I would like to hand it over to Pat for the closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Rina, and to our panelists for that very meaningful discussion. The theme for International Women's Day this year is Choose to Challenge. And it couldn't be more fitting or more apt than to celebrate women's empowerment by hearing from our panel of thought leaders and practitioners, and really people who have chosen to challenge. So thank you to the Sasakawa Peace Foundation for bringing us this session. Thank you, Audrey, for sharing the toolkit. Thank you to the panelists again for that very lively conversation and practical insights, which I hope that everybody listening in can take back with them. And thank you to all the attendees today. We hope you found nuggets to take back with you. We will be sending you a recording of a video recording of the session in the follow-up email, and also contact details should you wish to continue this conversation. On that note, we wrap up this session, but remember, choose to challenge, and let's continue to fine-tune our skills as we apply a gender lens and importantly, renew our commitment to gender equality. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.